Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Tsunami, Kushina and Mabui? Part 2. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, so without wasting any time let's get into the video. Meanwhile in Konoha. Fugaku sat in his office talking to Black Zetsu. The creature was still attached to the Gondai Hokage's right arm and it still conspired with the Uchiha Hokage. Losing the Kyuubi was a setback for the creature and it infuriated Madara. Madara demanded that Black Zetsu not to give his Rinnegan to Fugaku until the Kyuubi reforms and is captured. Madara was so mad that his plans were delayed that he willingly separated himself from the Jito Meizo to pass on. He didn't feel like subjecting himself to the failures of his progeny. The last instructions he gave Black Zetsu were, stick to the plan. It has been delayed until the Kyuubi reforms. Use that fool to bring me back when the time is right. Black Zetsu knew that meant steering Fugaku in a more power-hungry direction. The results of Fugaku's initial reforms could be seen around Konoha. It was still a vibrant town with a heavy civilian presence, but it was the Uchiha crests everywhere that stood out as different from 3 years ago. Uchiha crests flew over the doorways of 90% of shops in Konoha. It was a sign that they had made a deal with the Uchiha clan and it exempted them from the extra 5% tariff. Over the past 8 years, reforms have been made to put Uchiha clan members in leadership positions throughout the Hidden Leaf village to secure future interests and lock in the Uchiha reign. The other clans bristled at this, but the changes were slow enough that they didn't notice them until it was too late. By that time, they were pretty much forced to accept them. It was the next phase of the plan that was going to be tough. Konoha had always been a peace-loving village, aside from Danzo's route. Fugaku needed to acquire more power, and he needed to acquire the biju. Root operatives were scouting the elemental nations in search of the biju in order to locate them and assess their strength. So far, Gaara of Suna, the Ichibi Jinchuriki and Yuguro, the Sandai Emi Mizukage, have been identified as the easiest targets. Danzo's route was stoking the fires of a civil war in Mizu no Kuni in order to weaken Yuguro's defenses and hopefully create an opportunity to acquire the biju. Suna were allies for now, and the Ichibi should be the easiest pickings when it comes to the biju, so Fugaku could wait to make a move on it. Fugaku was working on plans with Black Zetsu to recruit powerful missing ninjas into a Black Ops group of sorts that would be able to secure the biju without being linked to Konoha. It was slow going, seeing as each time a messenger confronted an S-ranked missing ninja, they tended to die. Fugaku would need to find a better way to recruit these individuals, and Danzo along with his drones would play a key part. All it took to get Danzo on his side was a couple Sharingan eyes from deceased clan members. Since their goals aligned and Fugaku was providing more funding, Danzo was content for now to play the game of world domination from the shadows. Strangely, the man's straightforward ambition for Konoha's supremacy made him trustworthy, in a way. Along with the Uchiha domination of Konoha came a divide among Uchiha clan members. Mikoto had never forgiven Fugaku for what he did, or at bare minimum allowed to happen, to Kushina and her son. Kakashi had received correspondence from Kushina shortly after she reached Kumo that gave him his memories back. Kushina was correct when she said that they would mind dive him. Luckily, it wasn't overly thorough, they just wanted to confirm Kushina's death. After Kakashi had regained his memories, he informed Yugao and Kurenai of what happened. This trio began the slow and painful process of screening dissenters. When I say slow and painful, I mean drastic over-examination of every conversation, every word, every tone to make sure that it wasn't an inside man for Fugaku. Eventually, Kakashi caught wind of Mikoto's frustrations and he approached her. It wasn't too strange, he was an honorary Uchiha after he built such a name for himself with his transplanted Sharingan eye. When Mikoto heard Kakashi's side of the story and learned that Kushina and Naruto were alive, she turned into the ultimate inside woman. Fugaku never really said much to her, but she had access to the man's study. Ever since Fugaku became Hokage, Mikoto was relegated to the role of housewife and childbearer. After hearing the news, she said enough was enough and she used a birth control seal. The monster of a man would have to be happy with Itachi, Sasuke and Tsunami. Imagine a father scorning his daughters for the simple fact that they lacked a beep. This was the case for Itachi and Tsunami. Itachi was the last ninja allowed to graduate early from the academy and she had worked her tits off to become an Anbu. She was not even 11 years old and she was an Anbu. Meanwhile, her spoiled son Sasuke struts around the village and compound like some elaborate p-beep when he hasn't even activated his Sharingan yet. To be fair, the child is only 8 and he is modeling after his father, but even Mikoto finds him insufferable. It only worsened when Fugaku declared that Sasuke would be the future clan head because only a true Uchiha male could lead the clan. Mikoto's saving grace was her girls and their cousin Shisui. Of all the mainline Uchihas, Mikoto found it sad that she could only identify 4 of them as worthy clan representatives. It wasn't like she was asking for a high bar to be set, just simply don't walk around the village and treat people like you have a giant studded rod up your ass while you look down on them. Sadly, 95% of her clan failed this simple test. At Makoto's urging, Kakashi reached out to Shisui and he planned on taking Itachi onto his Anbu team. He couldn't do much about Sasumi, but he did notice that the girl was far more hardworking and skilled than her brother. Fugaku was so enraptured in his Hokage duties and his side projects that he didn't even register the divide in his family, yet another reason Makoto was done with him. Makoto wrote a letter to Kushina and passed it to Kakashi. Kakashi would send it to Shizune, who would let Tsunade send it to Kumo. It was in small letters and interactions like this that the Uzumaki clan kept an eye on the happenings in Konoha. Nobody suspected the lazy and chronically late Kakashi, who reads Icha in broad daylight, to be an inside man. And so the days crept on in Konoha, and the leaves kept on turning. Raikage's office 1 week before the start of the academy. I was nervous, which is saying something. This man had faced down hundreds of opponents with a smile on his face without flinching. However, today he was sweating as he waited for Kushina and her son to come into his office. I had taken a shine to the kid and he really did see the future of Kumo in him. That didn't mean that he wanted to have this sort of conversation with the kid and his mother. I nearly flinched when his office door opened and Kushina and Naruto walked in. The mere sight of them sent eyes mind-reeling to 3 days ago. Flashback training grounds of the Maki compound. I stopped by the Maki compound on his way home from a good day's work. He had just cancelled a mission proposed by his head ninja Dodai to bring the Byakugan to Kumo. With the Maki family here and all the blessings that came with them, I didn't want to draw the extra attention to Kumo. Instead, I sent Dodai with a treaty for a non-aggression pact to improve relations between the two rival villages. He gave Dodai strict orders to stick to the script and provide an update on Konoha in general, since Kushina had shared some of the letters that provided inside scoops into Konoha's current unease. I walked into the training ground of the compound to hear the beautiful music of Taiyuya's flute. I wasn't a sappy or romantic kind of guy, but even he admitted that the girl's music relaxed him and made him feel good. He saw Naruto fighting it out in a kenjutsu battle against 10 of his shadow clones. This was usually a clear sign that the kid was agitated and he was trying to sort through something. I meandered over to Taiyuya, met eyes with her, and beeped his head toward Naruto. Taiyuya shrugged her shoulders dismissively, but it was clear that she was bothered by the fact that she didn't know what was going on with her little brother. No, Raikage-sama had talked to the Kyuubi last week and he has been on edge since. Won't tell any of us girls what's got him so bothered. Okay then, I will take a shot, and didn't I tell you that you can call me Ioji-san when we are in private? Taiyuya plastered a shit-eating grin on her face. You sure did, Raikage-sama. I shook his head and chuckled at the troublesome girl, before he blurred away in a streak of blue lightning, before a stunned Ippo echoed across the field. When Taiyuya looked up, the two were nowhere to be seen. I took Naruto back into the onsen that Kushina built into the mountainside of her property and ordered Naruto to get in. He rinsed himself off and waited for the blonde brat to join him in the calming waters of the hot spring. The kid showed up 2 minutes later with a saucer and a bottle of sake. The kid sure does know how to spoil his uncle. After Naruto joined him in the onsen, I sipped some sake before looking at Naruto. Okay, buddy, spill it. And don't tell me it is nothing. If the Kyuubi said something that bothered you this much, then it is a matter of village security and I won't take no for an answer. Naruto's posture was immensely uncomfortable. Sunken shoulders, clouded eyes, pursed lips and rigid tensing of the muscles. I often forgets that the kid in front of him is 8 years old due to the more developed and chiseled body. Naruto eventually ducked his head under, surfaced, and then rubbed the water out of his blonde locks. Ah. Fine, OG, fine. You asked for it. The fire returned to Naruto's eyes as he glared at the Raikage. I simply beeped an eyebrow that said, you wanna go brat? Okay, so from the beginning then. The Kyuubi willingly sealed herself and me in a contract with my father and I am to be her future mate. Due to my particular situation, I am now a juvenile Hanyu Kitsune and my first tail will come in by the time I am 10. These changes caused me to grow faster than normal and now I have urges, like really, really strong urges. The Kyuubi told me they are going to keep growing and that male demons typically let these urges out by fighting or funking, her words, not mine. On top of that, I have 12 or so years to get to 3 tails in order to honor my end of the contract, otherwise I won't be worthy of mating with her and she will miss her mating cycle. So now I, an 8-year-old kid, am dealing with sexual urges that make me wanna rip Taiyuya-chan's clothes off and then I don't know what I am supposed to do with her after that. I am so agitated that I can't even focus my chakra. I burned through 200 shadow clones in my kenjutsu spars and I still feel hot. Kyuubi keeps telling me it will take spilling blood or funking the daylights out of somebody, but I don't even really know what funking is. The blonde's hysteria and rambling increased as he proceeded through his monologue. I got more and more nervous and just wished that his little prodigy could have had a more normal problem. I dropped his saucer in the water and ended up chugging the bottle before he responded. Okay, wow kiddo, I wish I could tell you everyone goes through this, but well they don't. On top of that, your mom is terrifying and she would rip my balls off if I had this conversation without her knowing. How about we talk to her about this together? Naruto nodded and seemed to relax into the onsen with his OG after that. They would continue the conversation and enjoy their time together. Each male was thinking about the immensely awkward situation that their plan would place them in, but funk it, it was a tomorrow problem. End of flashback. Kushina and Naruto sat down in the chairs in front of Ai's desk. Kushina's face was a mix between worried and frustrated that she couldn't get the information out of her own son. It was at times like these that Kushina missed Minato terribly. Naruto, on the other hand, was a trembling and nervous mess. His Hanyu urges were shelved for the minute, now he was too nervous to talk about this awkward subject with his mother. Kushina, breaking all decorum, opened. Would you finally tell me what the hell is going on? I cast a nervous look at Naruto and realized that he had no backup here. He sighed deeply and explained the gist of what Naruto told him. Kushina's jaw progressed further and further down towards the floor as Ai recited the ramblings of Naruto. Multiple times her head snapped toward her son with a look of absolute incredulity on her face. When it was all over, Kushina put her face in her hands and muffled a silent scream. She then recomposed herself and looked directly at Naruto. Sachi, I think I understand what's going on now. I am sorry you are going through this, but I need you to answer a question for me. Naruto looked intensely at his mother's chin with his eyes tilted up, he dared not make direct eye contact with his mother at this time. His Kachan could look directly into his soul when they locked eyes, and he didn't want her to see his shame. What is it, Kachan? The normally loud and somewhat boisterous tone was replaced by a hesitant whisper. Kushina took his hands in hers. Sachi, nothing going on with you is normal, but no matter what, Uzumaki stick together. We will find a way through this. What I need to ask you is when you think about your future, what do you want? Naruto livened up at that. Oh, that's easy Kachan. I want a big happy Uzumaki family, maybe I could be the next Hokage and lead Kumo to a better future. He paused and thought before continuing. I want to be a good mate to Kyuubi-chan and help raise the kids, his mind seemed to wander off here. Kushina sighed, she couldn't believe she was about to ask her son this. Naruto, what about your future family? Do you just want it to be with a Kyuubi or do you want one human wife or do you want several human wives? Naruto looked between his mother and I, eyes full of confusion. I mean, Kaiu-chan said that I should take more mates, but something doesn't feel right about that. I don't think I am old enough to answer that right now. I chuckled at his future apprentice and then smiled proudly at him. I don't blame you, my boy. This would be a lot to deal with even for me. Kushina took charge from there. Okay, Sachi, as your mother I will make the decision for you then. There is no way in hell we are giving in to these urges at your age. We will come up with something else. I will look into a seal that helps you suppress them, or maybe reroute them. You will not be some playboy or a mass murderer, not on my watch. Okay, Kachan, I will do the best I can. You know, and Uzumaki never gives up. I chimed in here. Kushina, I may be able to help with his excess energy. I will begin his training earlier than usual to fill his head with something other than these demonic urges. It will help the brat with his goal to get strong enough for the QP too. Naruto beamed up at Ai, then began rapidly looking back and forth between his Raikage and mother. Each turn of the head came with the blinding light of his gigawatt smile. Yes. Naruto jumped up and pumped his fist into the air. Please say yes, Kachan. The sooner IOG trains me, the sooner I can whoop his butt and take his hat. This broke the remaining tension in the room and made Kushina break into a fit of laughter. I simply plastered a beepy smirk on his face and raised a challenging fist at Naruto. You're 1,000 years too young, brat. You better be ready for hell. The massive fist shaking in front of Naruto's face made him laugh even harder before he wrapped his toned arms around Ai's stomach. You got it, Ioji-san. Hikari watched all of this from within her seal. She understood her container's confusion at being told to take more women when he was so young. Truth be told, Hikari had planned on the hormonal phase of development coming out when he was 12 or so. By then, his body would be fully developed and it wouldn't have been as awkward. Oh well, she pressure cooked the kid and this was the result. Hikari took a sip of her tea in a casually regal manner as she watched the conversation play out. She knew there were ways to divert the demonic urges, but she also knew that those ways carried substantial risks. They would continue to build and male demons that tried to do so in the past, often burned out the female demons. Once they gave in, they would rot for days, which often resulted in a not-so-pleasant experience for their female counterparts. Hikari admitted that it was a noble gesture, but she had no desire to be reduced to a quivering mess in such a manner. She resolved that she would talk to Naruto in time, when he was more mature and used to the sensation. She would also have to caution him about his pheromone use once he gained his first tail. Demonic tails came with a pheromone gland that would be quite troublesome with so many females in this village. For now, she giggled at the thought of her chosen mate being strong enough to resist his urges and prove his loyalty to her. She sure did know how to pick him. Kushina and Naruto left the Raikage Tower with a training schedule from Ai that was more intense than what his mother put him through. It was more focused on setting the foundation for the reinforcement jutsu that Ai was known for, the lightning armor. Reinforcement jutsu is the internal molding of chakra to provide increased strength, speed and durability in the user. Reinforcement jutsus required precise control through whatever body part is being enhanced, and it got even more complicated when you added in change of chakra natures to the reinforcement. Ai's lightning armor was a fully body enhancement that was hailed as the pinnacle of reinforcement jutsu. Naruto had worked ferociously so as to enhance his lightning affinity in order to control his chains. In a way his chakra chains were a form of reinforcement jutsu since Naruto held their form with his chakra and never fully release it from his body. Little did the youngster know that it was actually an expansion technique which he would become very familiar with in the near future when he grew his first tail. One funny exercise his mom had him do was to divide his shoulder-length blonde hair into short tails of sorts and try to braid his own hair. Kushina laughed uproariously at the outcome, Anko got blackmail pictures, and Taijutsu nearly pissed herself when she saw the results. Naruto refused to try the technique out again until he got longer hair. As far as his other affinities go, he was still on the level 2 exercises for water and wind. His mother helped him with water, but wind users were almost completely unheard of in Kaminari no Kuni. Kushina had Naruto pull out and filter the water from their onsen, and she offered his services to clean out pools around Kumo. Naruto let clones handle the errand jobs like that, but it still proved to be an effective water chakra control exercise. All Kushina remembered about wind was that Minato used to use it in combat. She remembered him splitting leaves, but she told Naruto that he would have to wait to develop this on further. Since leaves were hard to come by in Kumo, Naruto would try to cut this pieces of clay. It was a frustrating process for him, and he eventually shelved his efforts in wind to focus on other shinobi arts. Academy life. The time for the academy finally came, and Naruto was bouncing off the walls at 5 AM. After a pillow to the head from Taijutsu and death threats from Anko, Naruto went outside to jog up and down the mountain a couple times. Vendors, bolt squads and gate guards grew accustomed to the blonde blur, and they would all wave to his as he passed by. Naruto brought a vibrancy with him to any place he went, poor Konoha bastards would never realize what they missed out on. Naruto was back in the house by 7 AM to shower, and his clones had breakfast ready for the family at 7:30 AM so that they could eat and walk to the academy together as a family. Kushina was excited because this would be the first day that her education reforms would take effect and she wanted to see the results. Anko buckled her bolt mask to her belt after enjoying a delicious breakfast and threw Taijutsu on her shoulders. The little obstinate girl loved when her big sister spoiled her, and Naruto was far too big for Anko to do this to him. The Uzumaki family began the trek down the mountain to join a parade of parents and children that were heading to the academy. Everyone greeted them jovially as Amoy and Mabui joined the group, followed shortly after by Samui and Atsui. Naruto laughed at Atsui's fiery greeting, the boy was always ranting about how hot everything was, while his sister Samui preferred to say things she liked were cool. Mabui jumped on Naruto's back, latched her arms around his neck and pecked him on the cheek. Mabui was the girl outside of the family that had grown closest to Naruto. She was the daughter of a prestigious non-shinobi family in Kumo, but her dad was a shinobi that won the wealthy merchant daughter's heart. Mabui was a beautiful girl with light milk chocolate skin, silver hair and aqua blue eyes. She wore a green shirt with fishnet armor underneath. Naruto threw an arm over his shoulder and caressed Mabui's head before snaking his arms underneath her thighs and pulling her into a piggyback ride. Flashback. Mabui, Amoy, Samui and Atsui were called up to the Raikage's office. Each of their parents was high up in the Kumo food chain and were friends of the Raikage. For the past couple years, they heard their parents talk about Lady Shina and her family, but they really had no interaction with him. Mabui recognized Ruto's name as the kid that would run through the town in the mornings, and he delivered various Fuinjutsu tags to her mother's shop. Her mother tried to introduce her to him on several occasions, but the energetic blonde would always complete his job and run off to the next one. Mabui's friends talked about the blonde boy and had whispered conversations about how cute he was. She wasn't much interested in what the older girls were talking about, she was still only a child. Now, the group of kids was standing in front of their very intimidating Raikage. Mabui thought that the Raikage was still scary, even when he was smiling. I had them sit in chairs in front of his desk before he talked to them. Okay, kiddos, I have called you all here today after talking to your parents. I wanted to ask you to do a favor for me. At the kids' blank looks, I continued. There is a new family in town, and they have a couple kids your age. I just wanted you guys to introduce yourselves and maybe join them for some training. Samui raised her hand and I nodded at her. Raikage-sama, why us? Because you four already plan to go to the Shinobi Academy and you come from families that I trust. The Maki family is new to Kumo, and they are becoming very important to Kumo. I wanted to help the kids make some friends. Is that alright with you, Samui-chan? Yes, Raikage-sama, that sounds cool. Atsui jumped out of his chair in excitement. Well, what are we waiting for? Making new friends gets my hot blood boiling. I chuckled at the four and led them to the Maki compound. The kids looked at the Maki compound with big, wide eyes. Everything in Kumo was normal, pretty standardized, but not the Maki compound. The big Japanese-style, two-story house was quite different from the normal stone and clay building found in Kumo. The Maki symbol over the front gates to the compound kind of looked like the old Uzumaki crest, except it had the kanji for family in the center of it and it was an 8-bladed whirlpool instead of the Uzumaki's 4 blades. I put his hand on the security seal of the gate, which clicked open and allowed the kids entry. They walked around to the back of the compound to see 2 identical blonde girls in a kenjutsu fight and 10 blonde boys fighting 1 blonde boy with a kodachi. The kids watched the clone battles in a stunned silence. Nobody their age could make solid clones, nobody. After a couple minutes, the intense clone battles were over and Lady Sheena greeted the group. Thanks for bringing the kids over. I can take it from here. No problem, Sheena. Good work out there you two, now come over here so I can introduce you to some kiddos that wanted to meet you. Naruto sheathed his sword and Taiyuya stuck hers into the ground before they ran over to the group of kids. Naruto held out his hand to Mabui first, a gesture that caught the reserved girl off guard. She noticed that Naruto was almost a full foot taller than her, which reminded her of the Raikage. Her fear was halted by his gigawatt smile and kind greeting. Hey, I am Naruto Maki. I would love to make some new friends. What's your name? His electric azure blue eyes were filled with so much life that Mabui lost herself in them and left Naruto's hand hanging in the air. Samui elbowed Mabui in the ribs and the girl sputtered out an apology before taking Naruto's much larger hand in both of hers. She proceeded to shake it up and down repeatedly in an awkward fashion. And nice to meet you are Naruto-san. Her stuttered greeting made her seem super cute to the eccentric blonde. He skipped straight over her awkward introduction and greeted the others after giving her a genuine smile. Every time Mabui visited the Maki house, the same bright smile greeted her and the same warm feeling would pop into her chest. Eventually, she found out that Samui liked Naruto as well and a small rivalry for his attention sprung up between the two. Eventually, Naruto got used to making a shadow clone for each girl to complete their training drills with, which seemed to appease them. The 2 girls also spent a lot of time with Naruto's sisters digging for information, learning how to cook, and eventually became regular fixtures at Maki family dinners. Then flashback. Kushina watched the darling girl win over her son's affections and shook her head at the innocent naivety of the two. Or maybe it was just the one now. Kushina would have to keep an eye on her son's demonic tendencies and see if the seal she developed was working properly. For the past couple days, it seemed like Naruto was more of his old relaxed self. Kushina remembered the trip into the seal with Naruto and her discussion with the Kyuubi. Flashback, it was the night after the talk with the Raikage and Kushina walked into Naruto's room to see him working on some seals. After a brief talk, Naruto took Kushina's hand and placed it over his seal. After a blurring of her vision, they wound up in the living room of the Kyuubi's cottage. The beautiful kitsune simply looked at Kushina with an eyebrow raised. Kushina spoke in a stunned whisper. Damn, I had you in my seal for 16 years and I never saw you in this form. Kyuubi, it is nice to finally meet you. I am Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. I know who you are, Kushina. Not only were you my previous container, but you are my mate's mother. If you are here to ask about the Hanyu urges, then yes, he will become more sexually active and if he denies those feelings, then they will manifest in some form. At this age, I recommend a concubine of some sort. Oh okay then. But you are okay sharing him with humans. The Kyuubi closed her eyes for a minute before answering. Kushina, demon society doesn't have the same rules and limitations you humans do. Unfortunately, I overgassed the kid's growth a little bit and I have put you in this situation. I do believe the positives outweigh the negatives, but I am sorry for my mistake, nonetheless. How bad? How bad will his urges get? Kushina's voice cracked and she sounded on the verge of losing it. Honestly, once he gets used to it, not that bad. For now, I believe the best option is a concubine. You wanted to rebuild your clan, right? Kushina shook her head in denial of this. No, I don't want my Sachi to treat women like sex toys. He isn't ready for all of it yet. Kushina pulled Naruto close to her in the love seat. Is it possible to seal away the side effects of this urges? Let me stop you there, Kushina. Any seal that blocks demonic yokai will have very negative effects on Naruto-kun and myself. If there is a seal that focuses solely on the human physiology, then it should be okay. I would ask you to run it by me first. Thank you, Kyuubi. Kushina was cut off mid-bow by the kitsune woman. Oh, enough of that, Kushina. We will be family soon enough. My name is Hikari, and you are not to share it with anybody. Create your seal and bring it to me for inspection. Naruto-kun, it was good to see you again. I am most impressed by the results of your training. Naruto threw a gigawatt smile at her. Thanks, Hikari-chan. I am working really hard. I hope to get my first tail by the time I turn 9, then you will know for sure that you chose right. Hikari smiled beneficently at the boy in front of her. Oh, is that so, Naruto-kun? Care to make a wager? Kushina looked like she wanted to stop her son from doing so, but Naruto nodded enthusiastically. Sure thing, Hikari-chan. What's the wager? A foxy grin appeared on the vixen's face. Well, Naruto-kun, if you get your first tail before your 10th birthday, I will give you a kiss and tell you how to awaken your bloodline. Whoa, I have another bloodline. Not just chakra chains. It was at times like this that Naruto's childlike enthusiasm contrasted harshly with his rapidly maturing body. Kushina looked back and forth between her son and Hikari, trying to understand how he would have another bloodline. Her expression was somewhere between bemused and highly confused. Yes, Naruto-kun, you do. You had all of the proper components, and your Hanyu transition linked them together in a way that you humans would call a Kekai Tota. However, with every wager, there is a price, Naruto-kun. If you do not gain your first tail by your 10th birthday, in 20 months' time to be exact, then Hikari bounced a finger off her lip in an enchanting thinking pose. I don't know. I will think of a comparable punishment. Naruto's face fell at the anticlimactic end, but he was super excited to know he could have a bloodline rarer than anything in the elemental nations. Okay, I don't care what you do. I will get my tail and prove myself to you. I never give up, Dadabeo. Kushina stepped back in here. Wait a minute, Naruto-kun. Oh, relax, Kushina. It will be something silly at the very worst. He is my only potential mate, so I will not do anything too terrible. I am interested to see if he can accelerate his growth. Kushina sighed deeply and she threw her hands up. Okay, well, all of that aside, can we get back on topic? If my seal doesn't work, Naruto said you were okay with sharing him. Is that the case? Hikari nodded her head in a regal way, and her auburn locks swayed beautifully as she did so. I had more or less planned on it, Kushina. Male demons tend to have hyperactive sensual urges, and it gets too intense for one female. In demon society, the male demons claim mates and then have a number of concubines. I will of course be the primary mate and I will lead the others, but I will not stop him from taking human mates. Of course, I thought it would start in 5 or 6 years, but I never planned on monopolizing him. I just wanted my mate to be a good man from good stock. Your husband demonstrated his quality, and I knew all about you. This child is special, and I know that he will remain devoted to me, even if he takes some human wives. So, knowing that, the rest doesn't really matter. With that, Hikari pushed the two out of the seal and back into Naruto's bedroom. End of flashback. Kushina's twin swords rattled on her waist and broke her from her musings. She recognized the academy gates and the crowd forming outside around a stage that was set up. Kushina left the kids with Anko and went to join Derry, Yujito and Killer Bee on the stage. At 8:30 am, the Raikage opened up with his address. My people, I cannot tell you how proud it makes me to see so many loyal patriots of Kumogakure. Each of you represents the future of Kumo, and I have high hopes for this class. Your class will be the first to go through the complete academic reforms that Lady Shina assisted us with. I challenge each of you to give it your all, never give up and look to your classmates for support. If you make it through your academy training, you will be faster, stronger and better prepared than any genin alive. That being said, never quit, never say something is impossible, rely on your comrades, and fight your way through. As an added incentive, those of you that distinguish yourselves will be granted apprenticeships that will supplement your breaks in between school years. Go forth and become the might of Kumo. I looked out over nearly 40 kids and 100 family members of the new class. There were additional onlookers from the returning classes, each of the kids looking jealously at the experimental class. Naruto led his group into the academy, completely oblivious to the jealousy of his upperclassmen. He walked into his classroom and his group broke into groups of 3 and occupied the back left portion of the classroom, near the windows that looked out on the training grounds of the academy. Eventually, his teacher showed up and called the class to order. Naruto saw a tall, dark-skinned ninja that looked to be 25 or so. "Good morning class, welcome to the Kumo Academy. I am Slain and I will be your teacher for your first year. As the Raikage already said, this class is going to be a special experiment. You will be pushed harder than any class before you and you will be held to a higher standard. For now, let's go through introduction so we can get to know each other. After lunch, we will go to the training room and issue you your gear. It is important that you maintain accountability for all your gear. Your parents will have to pay for any lost gear. This is an important life lesson as shinobi. For your introductions, follow my example. I am Slain, I am a chunin for Kumo. I like reading manga, training and learning new fuinjutsu. I dislike traitors, thieves and rapists. My hobby is fuinjutsu. I work with Lady Kushina's advanced class and I am on level 4. I want to train the greatest generation of Kumo ninja ever and eventually become head of the academy. You in the front, started up. Naruto listened to the introductions of his classmates. He laughed along with the rest of the class at the stark contrast between the cool Samui and the hot-blooded Atsui. Eventually, his turn came and Naruto noticed that everyone was paying rapt attention to him. Naruto coughed to clear his throat and went into his intro. I am Maki and I love my family and Kumo and the Raikage for taking us in. I dislike traitors, bigots, child abusers and Konoha. My hobby is training, spending time with my family and mastering Uzumaki Fuinjutsu. I am at level 6 Lane Sensei and I will be taking my advancement exam in a month. To address the elephant in the room, I am 8 years old and I have a bloodline of sorts that makes me grow super fast. My dream is to become the Raikage, revive the Maki family and become a worthy mate. Heads beeped when Naruto said worthy mate and a girl named Kali stood up and asked the question on everyone's mind. Naruto, what do you mean by worthy mate? Naruto scratched the back of his neck sheepishly. Well, I was promised in a contract of sorts with a very beautiful and special woman. She set some pretty high standards and I want to live up to them. There was a collective gasp from the girls in the classroom before the girls hung their heads. Naruto didn't want to tell them that he would likely be taking multiple wives, he left it ambiguous, hoping that it would chip away at his ever-growing fan club. Naruto took his seat and squeezed Mabui's hand under the desk. Mabui didn't really hide her feelings for Naruto, I mean they were children, but Mabui was possessive of the lively blonde and he was protective of her in return. Ever since she joined him for training, she has spent most afternoons with him. Mabui had a strong lightning affinity and she really liked Fuinjutsu practice with Lady Shina. Naruto would create a clone to always help her and encourage her through her training. The young girl was a prodigy when it came to her studies, but she had no prior ninja training before joining the Makas. Lady Shina took to the beautiful young girl, Taiyuya enjoyed her first real female friend, and Anko accepted her self-imposed challenge to corrupt the pure youth to the dark side. This resulted in Mabui spending more time at the Maki compound than with her own family. Morning class was nothing special and the group ate lunch together. It seemed like every kid in their class came up and sat down next to them on the playground. It turned into a 20-kid conversation quarterbacked by Naruto. He was more than happy to make new friends and help everyone catch up. From day one, Naruto and his group were seen as the leaders of their class. Slain Sensei collected the class at the end of the lunch break and took them to the training room. In the training room were 6 Chunin ninjas that wore the quartermaster symbol on their left shoulders. These were ninjas injured in the line of duty that wanted to continue to serve their nation, that were assigned the duty of managing Kumo's weapons and military equipment. There were 6 stations that held at different pieces of equipment that the kids would need to sign for. The first stable were wooden wakizashis, short swords that were typically 30 to 40 inches in length. These were to be carried at all times during school hours and were to be used in all kenjutsu spars. The second table had bands that the children would sign out, Slain Sensei would instruct them on the use of these resistance bands when they returned to class. The third table had weighted vests for the children. The fourth table had wrist bracers and shin guards that were weighted, cushioned, and would be important for taijutsu training. The fifth table was a standard issue medical pouch and fuinjutsu kit. The sixth table was a standard issue set of training shuriken and kunai. Strict instructions were given on where to turn in damaged equipment. The children would not be charged for equipment damage during training, only equipment that was lost. Lady Shina's academic reforms were fairly costly, but her plan to have academy students do D-ranked missions in order to pay for the reforms and gain early experience made it possible. The students would go in teams of 6 to complete D-ranked missions with experienced genin leading the teams. This gave older genin good leadership experience and prepared them for chunin responsibilities. Plus, it eliminated the need for genin to do months of D-ranked missions upon graduating from the academy. Once everyone received their standard issue equipment, a contribution from the Maki family, they returned to their classroom. Slain Sensei told them that they would be required to wear this equipment every day to school. He provided instructions on the resistance seals and gave very strict instructions that the students were not to alter them. Instructions that Naruto promptly ignored since he was further along in Fuinjutsu than his sensei. Naruto inspected the training wakizashi and noted that the weapon was far too light for his taste. Even his mother's katanas felt light in his hand since his growth spurt. He was looking into getting a bigger and heavier weapon that would allow him to take advantage of his monster size and strength. The first year of school went without a hitch. Naruto was the top of his class in all subjects, but he made sure not to lord that over the rest of the class. Instead, Naruto created study groups. He invited people to join him for his workouts. His clones helped provide one-on-one training for the intro to Fuinjutsu, and he did everything he could to make sure none of his classmates were left behind. The kids struggled to deal with the extra resistance and weight of their equipment. The resistance seals were set at 1.25 for the first-year kids, and the bracers and shin guards weighed 5 pounds apiece. By 6 months in, it looked like most kids were moving normally again, so Slain Sensei upped the resistance bands to 1.5 and the weights to 7.5 pounds. Every other Friday, the kids would remove resistance and weights for the whole day and conduct outdoor training. This included spars, shuriken and kunai practice, competitive games like tag or hide and seek or capture the flag. The outdoor training was to acclimatize the kids to their developing speed and strength and let them blow off some steam. These days also provided outstanding medical training for the growing medical corps of Kumo. Tsunade had visited every couple months for the past 4 years, and she had earned the trust of I and other Kumo leadership. She provided updated training regimens and recommendations to Kumo. She wanted to make sure that her godson had all of the support he would need in the future. Unlike Konoha, Kumo was extremely grateful for Tsunade's aid and gave her an open offer to become head doctor of Kumo. She told Ai that she would accept the position when it was time for the Uzumakas to step into the light. Until then, she still didn't want to draw Konoha's attention to her family in Kumo. In the meantime, Tsunade worked with Kumo's head doctor to rework medical training regimens, and Lady Shina provided some medical seals that assisted with emergency medicine. These seals were revolutionary and allowed shinobi with a base-level knowledge of medical jutsu to perform more advanced healing. Ai took Naruto for his apprenticeship training every Wednesday after school and every Saturday. This training was intense and designed to whip Naruto into shape. It was during this training that Naruto discovered something very important about his chakra. Ai was making him climb a special mountain that was near the city. This mountain had a 72-degree grade and it was known as Deadman's Climb. There were no fixed paths, just a straight climb up the mountain, with a couple inverted climbs and sheer cliffs that were terrifying to any normal mortal. During one failed attempt, Naruto fell nearly 100 feet before his chakra chains shot into the side of the mountain and halted his fall. I was climbing with him, except the Raikage was packing on an extra 500 pounds and hadn't used his hands once to assist with the climb. Naruto expressed his frustration to Ai before the Raikage broke it down for his apprentice. Look, little man, when you are using chakra to attach to a surface, the important thing is a calm and steady flow. Your coils are developing rapidly, but they are still small compared to your chakra capacity and reserves. This means that the rate of your chakra flow is way faster than it needs to be. When you are doing your tree climbing or water walking exercises, you devote a significant amount of your mental power to forcibly slowing this flow down. When we are climbing this mountain here, you are losing your focus on slowing your flow, and that is why you keep slipping. When you get home tonight, I want you to meditate on the relationship between chakra capacity, reserves, flow, control and chakra nature. We will discuss what you come up with during our next training session. Now, back up the mountain, young man, you haven't even made it halfway yet. I watched a blonde with a massive smile on his face. The kid had a starving hunger for improvement. Every single day the kid did something that made himself better, and I had nothing but respect for that. Add the fact that the kid is a natural leader, and I knew he was training his successor. Not only did I feel like he was training his successor, but the childless 32-year-old Kage felt like he was training a son. He wanted to find a good woman to settle down, the only problem was that he was falling for Kushina. A woman that was totally devoted to his old rival and she didn't see him in the romantic way. I sighed at that thought, but it didn't stop him from enjoying many nights at the Maki compound. Throughout the first year, Naruto took personal offense to his repeated failures to conquer the Deadman's Climb. He would run there for his morning workouts and attempt to conquer it, but the sheer and sometimes inverted rock faces created a challenging course for Naruto. In the 8th month of his first year, Naruto finally made it to the peak. When he bragged to Ai about it, the Raikage made him do it again during their next training session. Then the evil Raikage made Naruto start doing it with weights in increasing 20-pound increments. Needless to say, Naruto's lower body and core strength improved by leaps and bounds from this exercise. Summer finally came after the first year at the academy. Naruto operated on a daily resistance of 3-0 with weighted vest, bracers and shin guards at 30 pounds apiece. This was double what Atsui, the second strongest of his class, was doing, and it was a limitation imposed by Kushina. Naruto's original group occupied the top 6 slots of the academy. Naruto was chased by Samui, then Mabui, Tayuya, Amoy and Atsui. Atsui really struggled with studying, but Naruto made sure he didn't fall too far behind the group. Each of these 6 kids earned apprenticeships. Naruto with Ai, Samui with Yujito, Mabui with Kushina, Tayuya with Anko, Amoy with Darui and Atsui was taken on by Dodai. B was to remain behind as Kumo's guardian, alongside a blood clone of Ai. Kushina also shared the shadow clone jutsu with Ai to help him deal with his paperwork and the blood clone to help rule Kumo while Ai was out on long trips. The kids were told to prepare for a month-long training trip where they would be going on a joint mission to a training ground in the Lightning Capital. The Lightning Daimyo, a man by the name of Korinji, wanted to meet the promising new generation. Ai had confided in Korinji about the Uzumaki family and the plans he formed with Kushina. Korinji was very excited about the promise of a stronger Kumo, which meant a stronger Kaminari no Kuni by proxy. The trip was to serve as training for the kids and a diplomatic negotiation between the Uzumaki clan and Kaminari no Kuni. The group set out at a slow pace and used each morning to train the kids. The adults were motivated by the kids and would eventually join the morning workouts and spars. After lunch, they set out at top speeds to make it to the capital. They made the trip in 3 days before the children were shown to the private estate of Ai's family in the capital. It had a massive training ground attached to it and the kids would spend their month training there while the adults talked to the daimyo. There wasn't much to that differed from the normal on this trip, but the kids did get to spectate as the adults completed an A-ranked mission to take out some missing ninjas that were attacking caravans near the border. The adults used this as a training exercise and broke down their approach to the mission, step by step, to turn the mission into a learning exercise. Here, most of the children saw their first corpses since the missing nins were accompanied by 40 or so bandits. I had a zero-tolerance policy for bandits, which meant that every bandit was sent to Yami, no questions asked. Kushina negotiated successfully with Korinji to begin rebuilding Uzushiogakure on the down low. They didn't want other nations knowing that Yuzu was being rebuilt. Korinji offset the cost of construction by restoring the farms that used to feed the people of Yuzu. Thus, Kushina broke off for 2 weeks of the training trip to escort the daimyo's project manager to Uzushio. She showed him how to deactivate the whirlpools and protective barrier seals that were still active on the island. She ended up creating a single copy of the master key for the island and entrusted it to Korinji. Korinji had to sign a blood pact stating that he would not abuse this privilege and any possessions of the Uzumaki belonged to Kushina by right. This included the natural resources on the island. In return, 90% of the profit from the agricultural production of Yuzu would go to the Lightning Daimyo for the betterment of Kaminari no Kuni until the reconstruction debt was paid off. This marked the successful first step toward the redemption of Uzushiogakure and it was an S-rank secret of Kaminari no Kuni. Second year at the academy. Shinamaki became a cornerstone of Kumo's defenses by applying a variety of seals around the village. The most influential were the screening seals at the gates. These seals could detect lies and they were solely responsible for catching 12 spies on the first month of use alone. She also provided detection seals for Kumo's mountain passageways and barrier seals for Kumo's high-value locations. These seals helped to protect her family's identity and Kumo as a whole. Every nation became wary of sending spies to Kumo and Kushina's seals would be responsible for catching 20 root ninjas throughout the next year, to the immense frustration of Danzo and Fugaku. Speaking of the evil power-hungry duo, they were investing a good part of their international resources to find out who was responsible for Kumo's new seals. This was so important to Fugaku that it temporarily distracted him from Black Zetsu's mission. They had heard that Kumo had a new seal master, but they couldn't even get a name. This was in large part due to Ai and Korinji's declaration that the identity of any seal master was to be treated as an A-rank secret. Thus, you couldn't catch a civilian in Kumo talking openly in public about Lady Shina, the seal mistress of Kumo. In private and amongst friends, the name of Shinamaki was credited for the noticeable improvement in Kumo's quality of life. Returning to the academy, the second-year curriculum focused on chakra exercises for the students. The daily routine looked something like this. Report into class for roll call, go out to the training fields for an hour-long morning workout. Return to class for instruction until lunch. After lunch came to jutsu practice for an hour, which was followed by an hour of spars. The spars were to be low contact and each kid would rotate every 10 minutes. This allowed the kids to get used to fighting different fighting styles. After spars came 30-minute lessons on chakra and how it operated in the body. After the lessons, students would conduct the control exercises for an hour. Each day at the academy ended in the classroom with 2 hours of instruction on various shinobi topics. This curriculum had 3 times more hands-on training than the previous curriculum, and the results were spectacular. Naruto used this year to focus on training up his body. He now had the body of a 14-year-old Adonis, which garnered him a significant amount of female attention. Naruto took Ai's teachings to heart. Ai taught that chakra was a power multiplier. If the body was weak and chakra could increase the strength of a person by 5 times, then 1 times 5 is 5. However, if the base strength of a person is 10, then 10 times 5 is 50. The difference between 5 and 50 could be the difference between a successful mission and the death of your whole squad. Naruto took this principle to heart and devoted himself to his physical training. Ai gifted Naruto golden bracelets for his birthday to mark him as his apprentice. These bracelets were significantly smaller than Ai's wrist weights, but Kushina's seals made them capable of being just as heavy. His Hanyu blood was kicking in strong and made his body capable of sustaining the repeat physical workouts and sustained weight. Naruto started to bulk up a bit as the muscle had nowhere to go but out. The lean and densely packed muscle of the 5'9" Hanyu became an instant nosebleed for young ladies around Kumo. A tale for the ages. The year continued without incident until the spring of Naruto's second year. Naruto was just over 5 years old, and something strange happened when Naruto woke up. Naruto woke up for his early morning exercises while it was still dark outside. He cracked his eyes open and rubbed out the cobwebs. His sleepy mind didn't process that anything was different, but when he rolled out of bed, his alarm clock went flying into the wall. The loud noise caused him to jump up and bang his head on his ceiling. When the young Hanyu rubbed the pain out of his head, he felt 2 fluffy protrusions that were intensely sensitive. He froze as his hands continued to rub the 2 triangle-shaped additions to his head. Slowly, his mind caught up to what was going on, and he darted over to the light switch. When the lights turned on, Naruto noticed something swishing behind him and noticed that his balance felt off. He turned around as he caught a glimpse of something blonde on his right side. This led to the kid chasing his tails until he heard a beautiful laugh ring out in his mind. He paused at the beautiful sound of Hikari's laughter. It wasn't often that his future kitsune mate spoke up through their mental link. Ara, Naruto-kun, I do believe congratulations are in order. Naruto instinctively beeped his head to the side and adopted a confused look on his face. He decided to walk to his bathroom to take a look in the mirror. He looked at his reflection in the mirror and his eyes instantly locked onto the blonde ears with white interiors that occupied the back corners of his head. He watched as the ears twitched in mirror and made a minor note that he was hearing things he didn't normally hear. The gentle snoring of Anko, the incoherent muttering of Taiyuya sleeping and the scratching of his mother's pen. Oh, Ka-chan is up, she would know what's going on. Naruto's mind froze as he noticed a blonde tail with a snow-white tip swishing behind his body. He remained frozen in place until his mind rebooted a couple minutes later. He then thought, Hikari-chan, is that my tail? A gentle and jovial reply came in through the mental link. Indeed, it is, Naruto-kun. I am proud of you. You earned it. A gigawatt smile seemed to light up the bathroom even further before Naruto pumped a fist in the air. His toned triceps flexed in the mirror as Naruto savored the moment that his hard work started to pay off. Thank you, Hikari-chan. Thank you for supporting me and being there when I needed you. I couldn't have done it without your yakai and enhanced regeneration. Naruto sent a flirty wink through the mental link. So, Hikari-chan, when can we have a date night in the seal? Date night? What do you mean, Naruto-kun? Kyuubi's fake innocence fooled nobody. Well, beautiful, I was taught better than to just show up and expect a kiss from a young lady. I thought we could spend a night together and you may give me a chance to earn that kiss. Plus, we haven't spent time together and just hung out before. I want the chance to get to know you. Hikari was glad that Naruto couldn't see her face or the blush that was adorning it. Oh okay, Naruto-kun. How about this Friday? You will need some time to adjust to your new tail and the power that comes with it. Yeah, it does feel kinda weird. New power though. Could you explain that? Well, your tail is a visual representation of your internal power. The tail is actually part of your chakra network and you will notice that your chakra control will feel off. Nothing a good week of control exercises can't fix. Naruto groaned out loud at this. Sure, he was a training fanatic, but not even a training fanatic enjoyed the monotony of constant chakra control exercises. GRR, you could have warned me ahead of time, you minx. Whatever do you mean, Naruto-kun? Hikari's melodious laughter filled his mind and echoed throughout his skull. It filled Naruto with a sense of peace and calm, as if he knew everything he had to do and he knew that he could do it. Okay, Hikari-chan, I am going to let my mother know. It is time to see if that transformation seal will hold up. Oh, Naruto-kun, you won't need a seal. Once you regain your control, I will train you on kitsune illusions. The basic illusion is the transformation. So, don't worry about the seal. Gotcha, I will see you on Friday night, Hikari-chan. Naruto closed a mental link with a fiery red vixen, smiling regally in his mindscape. Naruto ran into his mother's room and saw in her nightgown sitting at her study. She was working away on some scroll or another, but she turned and gasped when she heard Naruto enter the room. She took a second to blink her eyes and take in his form. Why you got your tail, Databane? Yup, so, Hikari-chan says I will need to work on my chakra control again, and once it is good enough, she will show me how to use Kitsune transformation to hide it. She even said that it has its own chakra network, Databeo. Okay then, Sachi, let's get some breakfast and then go train with your new appendage. I will let your teacher and the Raikage know what is going on. The week passed in a flash for Naruto. He worked his tail off, almost literally, to get his chakra control back to his pre-tail levels. His single-minded determination let him work with Hikari on the final day to get the first Kitsune illusion, transformation, down. It is a more potent version of the typical henge, which allows the user to actually transform rather than simply place an illusion over the user's body. This made it significantly harder to detect, and it would take a massive disturbance to break the transformation. The Raikage stopped by with B and Yujito, who counseled him on how to handle his new tail. B was significantly more useful because he could fully synchronize with Jaiuki, which gave him 8 total appendages that B had to learn how to properly use. B's advice helped Naruto learn how to control and maneuver his tail. B directed Naruto to use it in his exercises and treat it like a muscle. Thus, Naruto could be seen throughout the week hanging by the tail, reading a scroll or doing pull-ups with the new appendage. Naruto tried sitting in a meditative posture while balancing on his tail, a drill given to him by Hikari, but that proved significantly harder than using it for normal physical exercises. Naruto's close friends also came to visit him and make sure he was doing okay. Taiyuya kept dropping hints that something super cute was going on with Naruto, which instantly piqued Mabui and Samui's interest. They squealed like the schoolgirls they were and engaged in regular petting sessions. Naruto really enjoyed the sensation, so he didn't stop them. Atsui said that Naruto's tail was so intensely hot that his fire burnt as hot as the sun. Somewhere in Hai no Kuni, Fire Country, a man with a bowl haircut and green jumpsuit sneezed and knew that there was a disciple of the flames of youth out there somewhere. Friday night eventually came and Naruto went to his room to meditate. As he entered the seal, he took a minute to compose himself. He was on the hill overlooking Hikari's cottage and he took a deep and settling breath. He imagined a bouquet of fire lilies and it appeared in his hand. He then changed his usual uniform into a fire-red yukata with red slip-on formal shoes and walked down the hill. After walking up to Hikari's cottage, he rapped gently on the door. A beautiful voice told him to enter and Naruto walked into the cottage living room. Naruto froze when he saw the beautiful, fiery red vixen. Her hair was done up in a princess-style bun with golden ornamental hairpins holding it together. She wore a sleeker and slightly more revealing red yukata than normal. The pubescent boy noticed the extra bit of cleavage and gulped. Despite being 3 inches taller than the vixen, Naruto felt small in front of the majestic and godly beauty in front of him. Naruto remained stunned but mechanically offered the bouquet of fire lilies to his future mate. As for Hikari, she noticed the differences in the Hanyu male and she was flattered that he was going the extra mile to make this special for her. She gasped at the beautiful flower offering and graciously accepted it. She placed the bouquet in a vase before she walked up and placed a chaste kiss on his cheek. She linked arms with him, led him out of the cottage. The two continued to walk arm in arm up to the lakeside that was near her cottage. They chatted amiably and Hikari was grateful for the intimate conversation after nearly a century of isolation. She reaffirmed with herself that she made the right choice when she selected this boy. They rooted themselves on a soft grass patch that overlooked the lake and set up a picnic blanket. It was super convenient that everything in the seal could be summoned with a simple thought. They sat by the lakeside and enjoyed a simple conversation where the two took the time to get to know each other. They ate strawberries, cuts of fresh game meat, and ended the meal with some apple pie. The conversation grew more serious when Naruto asked Hikari to tell him about Makai. Hikari hesitated for a second before collecting her thoughts. Well, Rudo, Makai is the realm of origin for the Kitsune and other demonic beast clans. It is a world of vast disparity, and there are constant fights over resources and other such things. The Kitsune are one of the 5 major clans, or at least they were. I haven't made contact with them in over a century, and Naruto gave her hand a gentle rub as a show of support, since Hikari seemed to sadden as she spoke. It's okay, Hikari-chan, I will do everything I can to help restore the link to Makai. My father made the Hiration, which is a space-time seal. If you and Jutsu can manipulate space and time, then we should be able to open a portal to Makai. Hikari smiled genuinely at him. Thank you, Rudo. That means a lot coming from you. Well, getting back to the story, the Kitsune clan is a matriarchal clan that was led by me. After the sage imbued his chakra into me, I became the strongest kitsune. The next strongest were the 5 7-tailed kitsune warriors, one of which was a male named Kitsumbi. Male kitsune are rare since kitsune have a genetic predisposition to females. Thus, males usually take 2 or 3 mates to keep the clan young and strong. That is why I am mostly okay with you taking a few human mates, since after this mating cycle, I will not be able to mate again for a century or 2. Naruto blushed at the thought of that. Well, Hikari-chan, I figured I should focus on pleasing my future mate before I worry about anyone else. It was Hikari's turn to blush, which made her look even more beautiful as the blush matched her hair. She whispered a quiet, "Thank you, Naruto-kun." The two would cuddle and learn about one another for the next couple hours. When they were ready to call it a night, Hikari took the lead. She raised herself off of Naruto's chest, took his cheeks in her hands, and placed a passionate kiss on his lips. A stunned Naruto took a second to reciprocate the kiss, but he eventually did. Hikari ended the kiss with a small nibble on his lower lip before pushing him away. Naruto remained stunned with his eyes closed and a shit-eating grin on his face. He eventually broke himself out of it and walked Hikari home, where he earned his second real kiss. The night ended with a pleasantly surprised Hikari and a love-struck Naruto. The rest of the second year continued at a steady pace, with marked improvement being demonstrated by Naruto's age group. I and the Ninja Council needed no further proof and invested into their academy to fully adopt the Uzumaki standard. Naruto's role as a leader among his peers was locked in as he continued to be the top performer at the academy, while using shadow clones to provide extra support to struggling classmates. He ended the second year significantly above his peers, although his advantage in spars was tempered by his resistance seals being set to level 5 and wearing 50 pounds on his vest, bracers and shin guards. In comparison, his classmates were on 2.0 resistance with 10 pounds on each. Special look at second year Taijutsu finals. The second year evaluations ended with a Taijutsu tournament among the 10-year-old students. Since Naruto's class drew so much attention from the public, I hosted this tournament in Kumo Stadium. He wanted to show off the results of the new academic regimen and light a fire under his current forces. The whole stadium was filled with interested onlookers as the first rounds of the tournament allowed for 4 matches to occur simultaneously. The top 8 students of the class advanced past their 16 other classmates and made it to the quarterfinals. Nobody was surprised to see the top 6, Naruto, Atsui, Aomoi, Samui, Mabui and Taijutsu, among the quarter-finalists. Mabui fought Taijutsu and lost to her. Samui fought a kid named Jun and won. Atsu beat a boy named Malik in an exhibition worthy of the Chunin exams. Naruto fought Aomoi with his weight seals active, which allowed Aomoi to land quite a few hits and show off his skills. Ultimately, Naruto's stamina won out. In the semifinals, Naruto fought Atsui and was forced to drop his weight seals. He kept his resistance seals to make it fair. Atsui was a skilled Taijutsu practitioner and gave Naruto a solid run for his money. After testing each other for a bit, both of them separated and got ready for the real show. Naruto taunted the hot-blooded youth with a come get some motion and sank into Ai's preferred Taijutsu stance thunderclap style, which focused on using speed to land debilitating counter-attacks. Atsui dashed forward at impressive speeds and used a cross feint before he ducked under Naruto's blocking arm and landed an uppercut into Naruto's stomach. Atsui felt like he struck iron, but he continued the close-ranged fight until both of Naruto's arms locked around him. It looked like Naruto was giving the smaller boy a hug until he bent both legs and performed Ai's legendary Liger Bomb on Atsui. The Liger Bomb is normally reinforced by Ai's lightning chakra, but Naruto still used it with devastating efficiency. With bent legs, Naruto pushed out with his legs to create momentum, but he bent his spine backwards to redirect the momentum until Atsui's head crashed into the ground. The stands went wild with cheers after Naruto picked Atsui up off the ground and handed him off to the medical ninjas on standby. Everyone was thrilled to see a demonstration of the Raikage's apprentice's prowess. Naruto walked off the field with a medical team to make sure Atsui would be okay after giving a brief wave to the crowd to thank them for their support. Samui and Taijutsu had a much more graceful demonstration of Taijutsu prowess. Both Kunoichi and training adopted the intro stance to the Whirlpool Fist, which focused on dodging, parrying, and redirecting opponents' attacks in a graceful style. Taijutsu was better at this style because it fit more with her nature, which ended up giving her the advantage. Taijutsu's rather unique mannerisms kept the match lighthearted and drew laughter from the crowd. It was during one of her verbal exchanges with Samui that Samui accidentally shouted a response that embarrassed her, but it got her feelings through Naruto's thick skull. Naruto-kun is not a shithead. Yes, he is cool and I like him a lot, but he is already taken. Now shut up and fight, you foul-mouthed blonde baka. Samui sounded like she had reached the limits of her patience. Oh. So, you admit that you love the shithead. My not-so-little brother has the love and affection of the 2 most beautiful Kunoichi in our class. maybe I should take my shot at him as well. Taiyuya was clearly taunting and baiting Samui, but that seemed lost on the usually cool Samui. Samui then realized what she had shouted out loud and blushed furiously. And no I couldn't, I mean he doesn't, Ruto can't love me because he has already taken. Samui seemed sad to say it out loud and her blush turned into sadness. Taiyuya saw the opening and was able to easily beat the distracted Kunoichi, but the damage was done. Samui had confessed her love in public and she was totally embarrassed by it. Ruto heard the whole thing and thought that he would have to explain his situation to her a little more clearly. That, and he would have to punish Taiyuya for publicly humiliating one of his closest friends. Thus, the finals became a beatdown on Kumo's favorite foul-mouthed Kunoichi. The crowd laughed as the much larger sibling publicly tortured and humiliated the little blonde girl that never ceased her spewing curse words at her brother. A couple sailors in the balcony blushed and began taking notes as Ruto tightened the chokehold around his little sister and put her to sleep. He handed her off to Anko, who hadn't stopped laughing since the fighting began. Ruto Maki was named winner of the tournament and firmly locked in the top spot of his academy class. End of special look into the Taijutsu tournament. Naruto's Hanyu regeneration made his physical prowess stand head and tails above his peers, and his dedication to chakra control exercises made his control reach a high Chunin level. Strangely enough, his tail actually helped with his control once he got used to it, but since he operated with his tail hidden most of the time, that became a non-factor for his day-to-day. I got Naruto started on lightning channeling exercises, which are quintessential to learning the chakra cloak. Naruto would rotate through body parts while channeling lightning, focusing on creating circuit pathways between each and every one of his tenketsu. At this point, he could channel lightning to one arm or leg at a time by the end of his second year. Samui and Mabui loved to watch him train, and they would devolve into fits of laughter at hilarious effects of this training when Naruto lost control. It looked like Naruto tossed himself, and it often resulted in him losing control of his transformation, which left a twitching Naruto with his fox ears, tail and blonde locks standing up in an electrified state. These mistakes would end with him laid up in one of the girls' laps with his ears and tail getting petted. Naruto also used this time to grow closer to Samui and Mabui, both of whom had a primary lightning affinity. They had both completed the first lightning control exercise, and Naruto created a fun game for the second exercise. The kids would sit down in a circle together and link hands. They would then pass lightning between each other in a circuit. The amount of lightning being passed would be increased until somebody lost control and received quite a shock as punishment. They grew so proficient at this exercise that the lightning chakra became a visible current that would pass rapidly from person to person in a dizzying light show. I saw this control exercise and had his Bolt commander come and view a demonstration of it. Bolt squads began using it as a teamwork and trust-building exercise that would simultaneously work to develop higher raten affinities. The second summer training trip was similar to the first, except the group went to Uzashigakure. Kushina wanted to show Naruto his ancestral home, Korinji wanted an update on the farming situation, and I wanted an isolated environment to train the kids. The island produced new terrain to train in, it allowed Kushina to better teach her Suiton techniques, and it was essentially an escape to the island paradise for the summer. The boys loved the beachside training because the girls stripped down to their swimsuits. They may only be 10, but their training was causing rapid developments in their bodies, and growing boys will always be growing boys. The girls loved beachside training because Naruto looked like some form of Greek god with his chiseled body. The orange board shorts did nothing to hide his toned, muscular figure, and he looked even more alluring with a long blonde fox tail exiting through a hatch in the backside of the swimsuit. Naruto appreciated that he didn't have to hide anything from his closest friends, and they accepted everything about him. The afternoons often led to swims in the ocean that allowed for close proximity and flirtatious contact between Mabui and Naruto. Samui could often be seen joining the duo, which was largely due to the friendly rivalry between her and Mabui for Naruto's affections. During the trip, Kushina took Naruto for a day to visit the hidden Uzumaki library. She told Naruto about the siege and ultimate destruction of Uzashigakure. The siege lasted for 4 days, which allowed the clan to seal away all of their important belongings. The underground bunker was never breached, and once it was sealed away, the final defensive seals of Uzashio activated. This re-engaged the whirlpool defenses, it reinforced the barriers around the Hokage mansion, and when the final command was issued, it killed thousands of invading shinobi by flooding the island with massive tidal waves from all sides. Over the past quarter century, the island rose out of its ocean submergence like the resurfacing of the lost city of Atlantis. The island dried out and life settled on it once again. The verdant landscape was filled with life and just waiting for rediscovery by an Uzumaki kinsman. Kushina was that Uzumaki, and she gained access to the Hokage mansion during her first trip back. She left everything intact because she wanted to maintain the integrity of the Uzumaki library. She had made copies of certain techniques or jutsus to share with Kumo, in line with her contract with I. The bulky Kage was grateful for anything that could improve his nation. The biggest technique that Kushina shared with Kumo and Kaminari no Kuni as a whole was the Uzumaki agricultural jutsu. A combination of earth and water jutsus increased the productivity of crop fields, which allowed this relatively small island to sustain the Uzumaki clan. Kushina helped Karinji integrate these methods into Kumo's agriculture, which allowed for new fields to be developed where it previously wasn't possible. Huts were made into mountainsides and turned into rice paddies, the flat lands were tilled with Uzumaki earth jutsus, and water was redirected to hydrate the new fields, and Kaminari no Kuni was coming up on its first harvest after integrating these techniques. I benefited from this by an insane increase in mission requests all around Lightning Country, which in turn increased the fame, honor and loyalty earned from his forces. The transition from a strictly militaristic society started here. Naruto walked into the subterranean library after Kushina added his blood and chakra signature to the seal matrix. Naruto marveled at the collection as he tried to comprehend the enormity of this collection of knowledge. He crossed his fingers, and the library was filled with 200 clones with instructions to find things that may be interesting and copy them. Naruto wanted to make the most of this visit, and he wanted enough research material to last him the next year. He grabbed Fuinjutsu manuals ranging from Uzumaki level 8 to 12, hoping that something would help him figure out how to breach dimensions. The second annual apprentice trip ended with an exercise rather than a mission for the year. The adults played defense on a fixed position, a mansion that was recently rebuilt. The children were tasked with infiltrating the mansion and acquiring a scroll that contained secret information. I watched over the kids as they set up their approach to this mission. Naruto took point and led his team through the steps they were taught. For 2 days they observed and collected information. Naruto used clones transformed as seagulls, birds, foxes, monkeys and other transformations to scout out the mansion on the first day. The second day he compassed a detailed layout with a generalization of guard patterns that the adults were performing. It goes without saying that the adults playing the opposing force could stop any attempt, but they were playing dumb to let the children get the most out of the exercise. Eventually, Naruto created a diversionary plan that would allow Samui and Omoi to infiltrate the mansion, since they had the best stealth in the group. Naruto created 100 battle-ready clones that worked in squads with Atsui, Mabui and Taiyuya to create chaos at the front gates. Kushina was impressed and a little scared as explosive notes detonated all over the front gate. Much like herself, Naruto didn't really understand the definition of restraint. However, it was a very impressive tactic to draw attention to the front part of the compound. Hordes of Narutos led the charge after the gate was breached, and hordes of Narutos were rapidly dispelled by Kushina, Dari and Shai. Shai, the censor of the group, noticed the 2 kids sneaking through the back, but he thought they were hiding their signatures well enough to let them pass. After 20 minutes, the assault group was neutralized, but the scroll was handed to I, which meant it was a successful mission. The adult sat the kids down and walked them through an after-action report. They thought that the reconnaissance phase went very well, even if they did rely on Naruto too much for it. The main battle plan was criticized because it sacrificed team members needlessly, although it did allow for mission completion. I wanted to impart the importance of teamwork on his kids and the importance of not needlessly endangering your teammates. For instance, Naruto could have completed the distraction with clones alone and sent a larger infiltration force. Naruto countered that by saying he wanted to include everyone, but he did take the meaning of the lesson to heart. Each kid was given a couple areas of improvement from the senseis, and it was a good learning experience as a whole. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Bye bye.